And we are live. What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave every Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Cave will be taking to the airwaves, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook to live stream prior to each week of the NFL season. We're looking forward to it. I've been taking the last month and a half or so off to get ready for the NFL season, make some changes to the show, and here we are. I mean, the freaking season starts, Thursday night now. 2 nights from now, the Bills face off against the Los Angeles Rams, and it feels like the offseason took an eternity, but we're finally here, and I can't wait to get the show back up and running, and I have an awesome first guest that I cannot wait to introduce to you guys. And with that being said, I'm going to bring him right on board. Thomas from the Buffalo Late Night Sports Show. I'm very happy to welcome you tonight. It's going to be a great show.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, of course. And with that being said, bringing you right in, I'm going to do a little bit of introducing for you almost, and then you'll be able to give a better rundown. But anyway, Tom, like I said, is from the Buffalo Late Night Sports Show. He's not only the host of that, but he's also the co-host of the Process on Tap podcast. You can find his Twitter handle as well as any of his show Twitter handles down in the description of this live stream. He also, the Buffalo Late Night Sports Show has a website coming soon that is also going to be linked down there. So be on the lookout for that. So that's really cool. Are you kind of behind the whole website thing? Is that you, or do you have help doing that? What's that all about?
So the website's actually up. It's it's bflolate-night.com. We were toying with the idea. So the whole thing started with just kind of an idea. And actually, if you go on there, there's a whole bio about what happened. But I'll tell you, I went to high school and college for radio and TV broadcasting. And then, like most people, life just kind of gets away from you. And I decided to do other things and pursue other avenues. And now that life's settled down and my wife really loves me, she allows me to kind of, get into past, pleasures. And this is one of them, being a Bills fan and being really interested in the content creating community. I kind of just went for it. And my producer is my younger brother, 10 years the younger. And we've just kind of been dabbling in this and trying it out and working it through for the last 3 or 4 months. And then I had mentioned getting a website. And my wife was like, I'll build one for you. And so my wife literally just built a website one day while I was at work. And I got home and then my brother tools with it. But yeah, it's bflolate-night.com. And you can find all of our content and everything up there.
Yeah, I mean, I was, getting ready for the show and putting all your links down in the live stream. And I come across the website and, it's really cool. And it looks like you got some merch on the way. As well. So any of that you guys may be interested in, like I said, it's all going to be in the description of this live stream. So be sure you're checking out everything he does because, Tom's got a lot going on, man. So if you have any inkling to go check it out, it's going to be easy access right down in the description. So be sure to go and do that. All right. So with that in mind, we're going to move in right to the next segment, and that's going to be the recent headlines, basically anything that's been going on as of late. Nothing too crazy yet as the season has not actually, began. But we have a little bit of news, starting with the fact that there's been some Tom Brady drama. There's been nothing crazy lately, but between the whole Miami Dolphins thing and then the offseason progressed a little bit, first he retired and then the Dolphins thing came out. And now we're at a point where he's taking 11-day vacations. He's coming back now. It looks like he's had 4 layers of plastic surgery. Do you think any of this Tom Brady stuff is going to have an impact, positive or negative, on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season?
I don't think so. Tom Brady is the consummate professional, whether he's nuts or not. And we've seen him freak out, take the tablets on the sidelines and chuck them at walls. We've seen him get into it with coaches. But the one thing we've never seen is it translate on the field. Tom Brady is an anomaly in and of itself, no matter how many years he's been in the league. And most quarterbacks' bodies start deteriorating. I mean, we saw Ben Roethlisberger in the past 2 years prior to his retirement. He wasn't the same guy. And he was as prolific as Tom Brady at one point. But Tom Brady is just not the normal QB. And when it comes to what's going on the outside, it doesn't matter. The guy, and I don't like Tom Brady. I like Tom Brady, the quarterback. I don't like Tom Brady, the person, but he stands to get past it all.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right about that. Anything that's happened with Tom Brady off the field never has really, or even on the field for that matter, has ever really seemed to rattle him, at least for an extended period of time. Pokemon says a time off I can care less about. If the dude needs time off, he's earned it. I mean, I agree. Who knows what exact? I think they did actually confirm he went on a vacation with his family. If there's one guy in the NFL right now that deserves an 11-day vacation mid training camp, it's probably Tom Brady. I don't know who else could get that pass. Maybe Aaron Rodgers. He'd probably take it whether anybody allowed him to or not. But nevertheless, there's a few select handful of guys that you probably can give this type of pass to. So yeah, I agree with Pokemon. It's not really that big of a deal. But I have this theory, just on a small tangent with the Bucs, that they will be good. I think they'll still be one of the top teams in the NFC. But it just seems like the 2 seasons he's been in Tampa, I'll say, he hasn't seemed to want to go there as his first choice, right? It came out with the Dolphins in 2021. He tried to sneak away with Sean Payton to Miami. And then it came out later on that he tried to get to Las Vegas with John Gruden, Rob Gronkowski prior to the 2020 season when he ended up going to Tampa for the first time. So it's never seemed like Tampa's been his first option. He just kind of ends up defaulting there when things haven't gone his way because nobody else seems to be wanting him, crazy enough. And like I said, I think they'll still be a top team in the NFC, but this whole narrative that I won't be able to prove, even if something plays out in my mind the way I can see it, I could see it, affecting the Bucs to some capacity. I don't know. It's just this weird gut feeling I have, if you will.
I'll say this. I think they do need to play very good, or they need to do well this season, because I think this is the one year they need to worry about the Saints. I think Jameis Winston could actually be, and everybody has something to say about Jameis, but Jameis could potentially be a dark horse MVP candidate. That team is stacked, and it's got a very good defense. I think the coaching staff, it could actually do wonders with him. Aside from that, and Tom Brady was actually initially supposed to go to the Saints until Drew Brees came back and decided to play one more year. But I think they need to play really, really well. I don't think the outside noise is going to cause Tom Brady to have issues, but I don't think it's necessarily an easy road for them to just get right back into the Super Bowl. I think the Rams are going to be tough, and I think the Saints are going to be a tough one too.
I completely agree with the Saints take. One of my bigger videos actually this offseason, funny enough, was a Saints video where I'm just talking about everything I love about New Orleans and how I think, like you said, Jameis Winston could be a dark horse MVP candidate. They have one of the best wide receiving cores that Jameis Winston will ever have in his career. The offensive line is still solid. He's actually got a run game with Alvin Kamara. That defense is championship caliber. The whole 9 yards. I'm right behind you on that one. So definitely on the same page. Not enough people are giving the Saints credit for what they could do in an NFC landscape that I would almost consider to be no man's land. I mean, the Rams won it last year, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they are the top seed. Undoubtedly, like I wouldn't be shocked if someone else swooped in, and I think the Saints are a prime candidate for
right.
Brandon, I know it's hard to admit, but Brandon, I want to get to that in the Q&A section. So come back around. We'll come back to that in a second, but I don't want to stick right to that while we get through the recent news. The second piece of recent news, this one is a lot more recent. Trey Lance supposedly is annoyed. This is petty news, but he's annoyed by the Jimmy Garoppolo reconstruction with the contract. Obviously, they weren't able to find a trade suitor for him.
Right.
They weren't going to outright cut the guy. They didn't want him going to a competitor like the Seahawks. So they just reconstructed his contract, gave him some more guaranteed money, and it's almost like a win-win situation for both sides. But I guess Trey Lance is annoyed. I don't think this is the first report that's come out about Trey Lance having some sort of feeling toward Jimmy G. I think this could all be just a bunch of baloney, but do you think this has any impact on Trey Lance?
I think the tough part about this whole situation is Trey Lance has yet to prove himself. No, I don't think it's behooved him having Jimmy Garoppolo there. It's not in this. I guess when you look at the situation in of itself, he was put in a situation or put into a team where you would have thought he would have rose to the occasion. But the problem is Jimmy G is the type of quarterback that's just middle of the ground or middle of the road. So no matter what, He's never going to shoot too high and he's never going to shoot too low, which is the worst possible quarterback that you can have above you, because you would want somebody that's going to bottom out, somebody that's going to look terrible. But that's not the case. That's why like guys like Tyrod Taylor continue to stay in the league, because they never really hit, rock bottom. I think Trey Lance is in a tough situation, and I don't think the 49ers, they haven't made any decision. The reason that this whole thing is going to where it's at is because they never pulled the trigger on Jimmy G. They could have, and they just dragged their feet throughout the entire process. If I was Trey Lance, I think I'd be mad, and the reason is that they haven't committed to him. Yeah. He wants to know that he is the starting quarterback of that team. And I think Deebo Samuel even felt that. I feel like the 49ers have just kind of handled a bunch of these really high profile talents and made them feel like they don't know what their actual future within the organization is.
Yeah, I hear that completely. And, as much as they want to sit here and say, Trey Lance is our guy, or, they can name him the starter. But I guess in Trey Lance's defense, some actions can speak louder than words. And if you're sitting here reconstructing a contract for a guy that you're claiming is no longer going to have an impact on my position, I'd feel a certain way about that. Does that mean that they think one way about how my training camp's been going? Does that mean that I'm going to have a short leash? Who knows what this could mean for Trey Lance? I personally don't know if it's going to mean really anything. But I do think at the end of the day, there probably were offers out there for Jimmy G, and they just kind of were not feeling him, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like, I can't imagine they didn't field any offers. It sounded like they had no suitors for him. There's nobody out there willing to trade for him. I find that hard to believe. I think they probably were being a tad bit greedy with Jimmy Garoppolo. But nevertheless, I think this will be an interesting year for the 49ers, because they traded up for the third pick for this guy. So if he doesn't pan out the way that they hope, who knows what's going to happen with this team, because they're in a win now situation. They really need Trey to step up.
Right. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think the 49ers are in quite a predicament right now, because after being where they were in the divisional round, you really kind of, or the NFC Championship, you really need them to nut up or shut up at this point, because you assume that the Rams are probably going to be back, the Packers are going to be there, but the fact is, the way that the 49ers have handled their talent, I don't know. If I was a 49ers fan, I'd be kind of irritated, to say the least.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'd be a little confused. I think that's a good way to put it as well. Pokemon says maybe it'll make Trey perform better, perhaps. I don't know. It's a huge question mark at the moment for the 49ers. And I would like to feel, if I was a fan, like you were saying, I'd like to feel a little bit more secure about a team that's got what I would consider a Super Bowl window in front of them. And, things are just kind of a whole gray area. But time will tell on the 49ers for sure. The last piece of recent news, which is extremely recent, I don't know if this happened today, yesterday, can't remember off the top of my head, but here it is. Mitch Trubisky was named the starter in Pittsburgh. Do you think Mitch Trubisky has enough to keep this team afloat in the extremely tough AFC North?
I do. The tough part is really with him in Chicago, Matt Nagy never seemed like he was, he didn't really exude confidence, we'll say that, and he didn't make you feel comfortable. I think Mitch Trubisky was put into a situation where that Bears team, even to this day, is so deficient of talent. He had nobody around him, and even the guys that were around him were constantly injured. So I think it's tough. I think now that he has a team, and I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of talent on that Steelers team. So if Trubisky even is remotely, if he's average at best, that's another team in a very loaded AFC. I think if I was any other team in the NFL, I would, or the AFC, I'd be nervous, because I think Trubisky is a capable starter. He proved it last year in limited capacity with the Bills. I think he can absolutely do wonders, but I will say it was smart for what they did. I think the Steelers were intelligent with going with him, because if it doesn't go bad, or if it doesn't turn out right, they can go right to Kenny Pickett and nobody's the wiser. The fans are going to be fine with it, and they're going to say it as, okay, we're moving on to the future. Whereas if you'd started Kenny Pickett and things didn't go right, well, you got to ride with him. It's the Kenny Pickett show. So I think it was a good decision, but I do think I think Trubisky has enough in the tank and he's still very young to be able to actually hold that, starting position and not have to worry about kind of who's over his shoulder.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially with the point you made about rolling with the veteran before the rookie. And this was a mistake that I felt like the Broncos made last year going to the season. I was 100% confident that they would start Drew Lock. It was almost a similar situation, but instead they went with Teddy Bridgewater, and I couldn't wrap my head around this thought. Like, you go with Teddy, you're capping yourself at mediocrity at best. And that's exactly what happened. They went 7-10. They beat the teams that were bad. They couldn't beat the teams that were good. And they finished below 500, didn't really sniff a playoff spot. But Drew Lock, I mean, you could end up starting the season 0-4, but you can end up starting the season 4-5-0. You just didn't know what Drew Lock was going to present to you. And I think it's valuable to at least figure that out. And going to a third year for Drew Lock, I thought he deserved that opportunity. But they went with Teddy Bridgewater, and that was an interesting dynamic between those two guys last year. And now this season, it's like I mentioned, a similar situation with Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. Mitch Trubisky ends up taking home the job. He's now a captain. And like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head with the fact that you can start Mitch Trubisky and go to Kenny Pickett if things don't go to plan. But if you roll out Kenny Pickett week 1 and he starts to struggle, I don't think that's a very good look to roll with Mitch Trubisky after the fact. I think you diminish not only Kenny Pickett's confidence for benching him, but you also diminish Mitch Trubisky's, because he goes into the season losing the job to a kid that's never played an NFL snap in the NFL,
right.
NFL snap in the league. So it's a lose-lose when I feel like you roll with the younger guy. So
right.
I felt like you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's just that offensive line is really what scares me. And if Mitch Trubisky isn't able to get the ball out quick, if he gets sacked a lot, his weapons aren't there to help him as much. I don't know if Najee Harris's health is going to be of a concern this year. I know he's dealing with I think it was a fractured Les Frank. I don't know what that word is, but it's like the bone that gives you the arch in your foot. That could be of a concern. If they lose Najee, that could be a big hit. The defense couldn't stop the run for their lives last year. If those are things that they can kind of iron out, I think they'll have a better opportunity. But it's going to be a tough season for Mike Tomlin to withhold that never had a losing season narrative, which is still mind-boggling to me. But
right.
If this was the year for it to happen, I think this is Mike Tomlin's biggest challenge. I'll be interested to see how they fare.
For sure, especially in a loaded AFC North.
All my coworkers and my boss are Steelers fans, and tell them if Trubisky takes them to the Super Bowl, they could take Josh Allen the Bills. I don't know if the Steelers are going to be sniffing the Super Bowl. I think there's going to be a long shot for a playoff spot for that team before we talk about any type of Super Bowl or even potential bye going into the postseason. But anyway, that wraps up the recent news. There really wasn't much going on as far as the NFL news goes. But anyway, we're going to move on to the Underdog segment, which is somewhat of a new segment. It's going to be kind of the hot take as well as like an Underdog for the week type of mixture. So first, we'll start with the Underdogs of the week. Do you want to start with your Underdog, Tom?
Yeah. So my Underdog of the week, the New York Football Giants play the Tennessee Titans in week 1. I truly believe that the Giants actually could come out swinging here. I think Brian Daboll is going to actually take this Giants team that was quite deficient last year and potentially turn them into a average team. I don't think they're going to be a powerhouse by any measure, but I think he could work with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones he's like super light Josh Allen, not even light, super light. I think Daniel Jones, you can whip him into shape. He's got arm talent. He's mobile, and they've got some talent on that offense. Saquon Barkley can stay healthy. They've got something there. I truly believe that the Giants have potential this year. I don't think they're going to be a superstar team, but I think they could be a sneaky 6-7 win team. And I wouldn't be surprised coming right out of the gate against a Titans team that's still kind of working through some wrinkles, adding Robert Woods, adding Treylon Burks, and depending on how healthy Derrick Henry truly is at this point. I don't believe in Tannehill. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if by week 6 Malik Willis is the starting quarterback of the Titans. But out of the gate, I think the Giants could shock the NFL and win week 1.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants are a team that when you look up and down the roster, they really do have a lot of talent. They're one of the they have a team that pops off the page, in my opinion. I mean, you look at a skill position group that consists of guys like Kenny Golladay, who unfortunately is doing a lot more harm than help to that franchise at the moment. But, Kenny Golladay, I like Sterling Shepard. I like Darius Slayton. Like, these are guys under the radar that I think are good depth pieces. But, of course, you got Kadarius Toney. They drafted Wan'Dale Robinson. As you mentioned, Saquon Barkley. If he's able to stay healthy, they just drafted Evan Neal. They got Andrew Thomas as their offensive tackles. There's a lot to like over in New York right now. And, with Daniel Jones, I completely agree on the fact that with Brian Daboll, you could see some flashes that we hadn't seen in the past. I just think it's a matter of staying healthy with this football team. It's been their Achilles heel. No, pun intended, kind of. Is that a pun? Anyway, it's been their Achilles heel over the last couple of seasons was their inability to stay healthy. They lost Kadarius Toney for a number of games last year. Kenny Golladay was in and out with time. Not that he was doing anything anyway. Saquon Barkley suffered a freak ankle injury, just like running up the field, and he stepped on a Cowboy player's ankle and just rolled his. Danny Dimes hurt his neck. Like they just couldn't escape anything. Right. So if this is a year that they're able to stay healthy, I completely agree. They're easily within range of 6 to 7 wins in an NFC East, which has not been claimed by the same team in back-to-back seasons over the last 17 years. So who knows what kind of noise that this team can make. But I like that pick a lot, especially knowing Tennessee is going through quite a rough patch right now. And I would say that their days of potentially being a Super Bowl candidate are certainly over.
For sure.
All right. And with that in mind, I'll touch on my underdog of the week. My underdog of the week, which it's almost even, but I mean, according to the sports books, it is an underdog. The Cleveland Browns beat the Carolina Panthers. I believe Cleveland is traveling to Carolina. This is the Baker revenge game. I think there's a whole lot of hype being thrown at this game, obviously because of the Browns whole situation, the way they handled it with Baker. And now they go head to head in the first week of football. I think the Browns take this game home. I think the roster in general is more well-rounded. I think they're prepared to win more games. Their defense on paper, I like a whole lot more than the Carolina Panthers. Granted, I do like the Panthers team. There's just something about them. I don't think Baker Mayfield is going to be able to bounce back mentally from what he's gone through over the last year and a half or so. I could see the moment getting a little bit too big for him. I think the Carolina Panthers may struggle to stop the run that the Cleveland Browns will throw at them. Obviously, one of the best run games in the NFL. There's just a whole lot that I feel like goes against the Panthers in this game that's not being given credit for. And if Jacoby Brissett's able to be any kind of game manager like we've seen him be in the past, I think they're going to be a difficult team to beat, irregardless of the Deshaun Watson situation. And with that being said, I think them being underdogs here is almost kind of criminal against the Carolina Panthers team that we've seen struggle tremendously over the last year or so.
Right. I think the tough part is Jacoby Brissett. Thus far, whether when he was in Miami, whether he was with the Colts, he's never really been a world beater. He's just been a lower tier quarterback. And unfortunately, I think that's where the betting line sits, is the fact that no matter how talented that Browns team is, and we know it's talented, their defensive line is one of the best. They've got a really nice corner or a really nice defensive backfield with Denzel Ward leading that out. The running back tandem of, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb is probably the best. And then they added Amari Cooper. There's a ton of talent on that team.
Yep.
The problem is, it all starts with the quarterback, and we've seen for years and years with the Bills. Don't matter how good your team is, if you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't mean anything. Yep. And quite frankly, you'll get weighted down by a bad quarterback, and that's probably what's going to happen here. I like the bet, but I would probably say that I think the Panthers are going to pull this one out, just because I think Baker Mayfield has a ton of anger and a ton of pent up, pissed off frustration ready to put at him.
Yeah, I think that's really I think same with Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett. It's really the quarterbacks that are going to be the determining factor. Obviously, you can say that about any football game, but Jacoby Brissett, we don't know what we're going to get from him. But with Baker Mayfield, it's kind of the same thing. 2 massive question marks under center. I guess it comes down to whether or not you think Baker Mayfield is going to be able to own this moment. And I don't know. I feel like he's just going to fall short. It's going to become a little bit too big for him. I don't know. I think his whole mindset got really screwed up after what happened with Cleveland last year. And not really how they screwed him over, but more so just how he played. He just was not playing good football, obviously due to the shoulder injury, but his mind was just not there. It had a lot more to do with the mental side of the game. He was making bad reads, game in and game out. He wasn't hitting throws that he should, obviously because of the injury. I think all of that is going to factor into this season too. So with that being
honestly
said,
think you could actually see one day a 30 for 30 on Baker Mayfield's early part of his career and what they put him through. I mean, you see Josh Allen do the same exact thing. Josh Allen puts his body on the line and is a blue collar guy, and Baker did that exact same thing, and he got injured and they ran him out of town. Personally, I feel for Baker. I think he got a raw deal.
Oh, I agree completely. I mean, he definitely should be the starter for the Cleveland Browns right now, had things not gone the way they did. I would have been more than willing to give him my vote of confidence had he still been in Cleveland. But I think the whole falling out and, like I mentioned, how he played last year and now he's going to a new place with new scenery. I think that's kind of screwing him over a little bit, but that'd be an interesting 30 for 30. I mean, this guy was on top of the world coming out of college, first overall pick, Heisman winner. This guy was the talk of the town, and now he gets to the NFL and, he's being honored at a college level. They're giving him a statue. Meanwhile, his NFL career is going pretty much down the toilet. I thought that was a little bit ironic when it all went down, but it really is a polarizing story for Baker Mayfield, and I do feel for him. I completely agree on that. All right, and you said you had a hot take as well, which I wanted for you to touch on because this is a little bit of a mishmash. So why don't you knock that out of the park?
Sure. So my hot take is that Josh Allen is going to do something that only 10 other NFL athletes have done in the history of the NFL. Now, before I get into what that is, I want to preface with a few things. This season, Josh Allen has the opportunity to continue his ascension. Thus far in his now 5-year career, he has statistically improved year over year. He's made conscious decisions to directly focus on different aspects of his game and in turn affect his team's output. This season, he's going to see his numbers continue to skyrocket with another year of Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis seeing his share of targets rise immeasurably, and then the inclusion of Isaiah McKenzie, Khalil Shakir, Jamison Crowder, Dawson Knox, and more. He also saw the stabilized offensive line with the additions of Roger Saffold and the re-signing of Rick Bates. Now, you saw last season that the reassurance of the O-line provided Josh with incredible dividends. And when I mean that, it paid dividends in his ability to go through his progressions and make quality throws, and then in turn saw the offense rise to new heights. Josh has made concerted efforts to be the best version of himself every single season, and this year will be no different. I expect to see a QB who is playing with a fire inside of him unlike any we've seen thus far. So my point to all this, long-winded, but I wanted to make sure I got that all in, is that Josh will this year be the 11th player in NFL history to win both the regular season NFL MVP and the Super Bowl MVP in one season.
That is, I mean, the crazy part about that take is that it's in the realm of possibility. That's the thing that I feel like it comes off as so bold and so hot, but the fact that it's in the realm of possibility is the craziest part about the whole thing, right? I mean, this is a season where the Buffalo Bills are nearly unanimous. I don't want to say unanimous, but I mean, every single place you look, we're in an age where the Buffalo Bills are the damn near unanimous Super Bowl favorites. A year where Josh Allen has, like you said, ascended season after season, was second in MVP voting 2 years ago. This season, I think he could have even had a case, had 1 or 2 games gone a little bit better. And now this year, assuming that the Super Bowl favorite odds are lived up to, Josh Allen is going to be the reason for that. We don't have our offense isn't predicated on an insane run game where Josh is game managing. Our offense isn't predicated on, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. I mean, it is literally the Josh Allen show with co-stars Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and, Dawson Knox. It's a co-star role that these other guys are playing. This is the Josh Allen musical, and it's just going to be whether or not he can
I like that.
He can really step up to the plate. And, if all of this happens, we take the 1 seed, we win the Super Bowl, Josh Allen is going to be that MVP favorite. We don't win the Super Bowl MVP if Josh Allen's not the Super Bowl MVP.
For sure.
Bowl if he's not the MVP favorite. So that's the craziest part about it. And that's why I like that take the most, because as bold as it is, it's so possible. And we're living in an age where that's pretty insane to say out loud. And there was another take that Pokemon had that I wanted to touch on. Oh, going back on the underdog thing. He says the Cowboys win week 1 because they're playing against the Bucs again. Do you remember that game last season? The Bucs played Tampa, or the Bucs played Dallas week 1. Dak coming off that ankle injury, and that was like a 60+ point game for in total, and that was a good one. I think this year, if there's a year that there's an upset for the Cowboys, I think this is the week that they can do it over a team that we were just talking about that could potentially struggle with who knows what's going on with Tom Brady. So that's an interesting take too.
I never really know what the Cowboys are. And I hate to say I'm sick of the Cowboys, but they're always on prime time. Yeah. I never know what the Cowboys are going to be any single season. They've got a ton of talent. I mean, if when Michael Gallup gets back, he's a bona fide number 1. You've got CeeDee Lamb, another bona fide number 1. They've got Zeke Elliott, but I mean, he's kind of at the tail end of his career. And then you got Tony Pollard, who's a fantastic running back. I think they've got all the talent to be able to go up against, I'm sorry, Dalton Schultz too. Yeah. Very nice tight end. They've got a ton of talent. I think that's going to be a bruiser of a matchup. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I'm super excited. I could see the Cowboys pulling that out. The only caveat to that is the Buccaneers have a really good defense. And as good as Trayvon Diggs was last year, interceptions wise, he was terrible in every other metric.
Yep.
And Tom Brady is going to go after him left and right, especially adding Russell Gage. Then you got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I'm not sure if Chris Godwin's playing week 1. I don't remember.
He may be. It's still up in the air. I was just reading about that today, but there is a possibility, funny enough.
Yeah. I think it'll be an interesting game. I think the Cowboys could, but I would be more leaning on the Buccaneers to take it to the Cowboys.
I think I'd agree. I think I still got to go with the Bucs, just knowing that their defense is as ferocious as it's been in the past. The year that they beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl was one of the craziest defensive let me rephrase that. One of the craziest games where I saw a defense get so much pressure. Granted, the offensive line was a shell of its former self for the Chiefs, but
right.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes was running for his life. I've never seen a quarterback run for his life the same way that I saw Mahomes did in that game. And although I don't think the Bucs defense is that level anymore, it's still very good. The Cowboys offensive line is not what it was. And I would agree. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do take this game home. All right, so we're going to move on from the underdog. The next segment, this is also a new segment, so this is an interesting one. Now, I have what you're going to find out in about 2 seconds. I have an infatuation with Derek Carr, like a really love. There's no hate. It's a love relationship with Derek Carr. I've been putting so much stock into him physically, emotionally. I've been talking about him to anybody I possibly can, my friends, my family, somebody like yourself who's on my shows, like anybody I can find to listen to my Derek Carr takes. I'm going to say it. And
sure.
So that's been my off-season plug. And now the season's here. And on a week-to-week basis, I want to follow how Derek Carr does. And, hopefully I'm coming in with some positive news, on a week-to-week basis. But long story short, I think Derek Carr is in a situation to break out despite being in the league since 2014. He's got Devontae Adams, his college sweetheart receiver. Obviously Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. He's got one of the best skill position groups in the NFL. He's playing in the AFC West with a defense that is going to be lackluster. They're going to have to throw the ball a whole lot if they're going to want to win games. Derek Carr is going to have to put up a lot of points. And I think this is a season where Derek Carr could really throw up to 5,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. Like, I'm really projecting some crazy numbers for this guy, if I can find a stupid banner. So I came up with this hypothetical projection: 683 attempts, 469 completions, 5,100 yards, and 35 touchdowns for Derek Carr, putting him in the MVP candidate.
I was going to say that's MVP stats right there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the perfect storm, and it's not even going to be the Raiders necessarily being one of the best teams in the AFC, which you would think that would equate to. It would just be the perfect combination of their defense being so bad in such a high-powered conference in games they're going to have to put up a lot of points, where Derek Carr is going to have to be throwing the ball so much with an offensive cast he has to come up with this stat line. So, yeah, that's where all this is coming from. And if he fails me, I'm gonna be really upset and look like a clown. But yeah. What do you think about Derek Carr?
So I think Derek Carr is an interesting quarterback. He's obviously significantly better than his brother. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think the problem is he's gotten a bad rap because of his name. His namesake's done him no favors. I mean, if his brother was never in the league, Derek Carr would be a good quarterback in perception. But the problem is David played on a terrible Texans team and washed out. And so because of it, everybody just believes that Derek Carr is bad. He isn't. I mean, Derek Carr's stats every single year are actually pretty darn good. And to be honest with you, if you had to deal with the tumultuous behavior of what an Oakland Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders franchise is, it's tough. Yep. It's absolutely tough. You put Derek Carr on the Bills, I think you're talking a different story. I think Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback. I don't think you're crazy in your analysis or your affection towards him. I think he's a good quarterback. Would I like him on the Bills? Derek Carr is better than any quarterback we've had in the drought era. Any one of them. Yeah. Any single one of them, Derek Carr is better than. So I don't think it's a crazy thing. Do I think he's going to get 5,000 passing yards? It's possible, but the problem is playing in the hardest division in the entire NFL. And is it going to get into shootouts? Quite possibly, because every single one of those teams has an unbelievable quarterback and an unbelievable offense. And Derek Carr might be the best quarterback of any division. Like it makes no sense at all.
Easily.
So I don't think I don't think it's crazy or out of the realm of possibility that stat line could happen. I think it's going to come down to how well Devontae Adams blends in to that offense, because that offense isn't bad. Waller's played well. Renfro's obviously stepped up. Josh Jacobs is still a weapon there, even though they're kind of going away from him. Mm-hmm. The only thing they got rid of was Zay Jones, and quite frankly, I think that was probably for the better. I don't really trust Zay Jones. I think that offense could be really, really good this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if Derek Carr ended up with that stat line. Doesn't seem that crazy to me.
I'm glad to hear that, because I know there's going to be somebody that eventually comes out and says you're completely out of your mind, you're ridiculous. There's been this whole offseason narrative. It started a while ago where I first started seeing the occasional Derek Carr love, and then it started to heat up as the offseason progressed, and then people started to say he was overrated. And I guess I never got behind that, and I just continued pushing the love train, and now this is where we're at. But like I said, I just figured this would be a fun segment to kind of keep up with as the season goes on and see how it kind of ages, because I've been plugging it, so much at a constant rate that I almost felt like if I didn't include it in this show to some capacity, it would go against everything I've been praising and preaching for the last 3-4 months now. All right, so that's my stupid little segment. Carr's stats are good, but has the most overtime games. But I do agree he is average in a stacked division. I can agree to that. I mean, I think average is a what's the word I'm looking for? Is an underwhelming word, or an underestimation. I think he's, I guess, average in comparison to who he's being stacked up against in his division. Like you mentioned, like I guess that would be considered average. I don't know. Anyway, all right, we'll move on. So the next segment is going to be the Q&A segment. And I'm going to have 3 questions for you. This is the time where any of you guys in the comment section, if you have a question, feel free to drop it. And this is where we're going to touch on, any type of questions that you guys may have. So I'll start the questions off with this. Do the Bills beat the Rams in week 1? Straight up. Yes or no?
So on my show last night, I had Z-Bot from Buffalo Fanatics and Colt Schroeder from Buffalo Rumblings. And I told them, and they think I'm crazy, I think the Bills are going to beat the Rams 41-17.
Oh, wow.
Everyone thinks it's going to be a close matchup. I don't. I think the Bills are coming off of a heater. They didn't change much. In fact, what they did change was for the betterment of the offense. You removed a Cole Beasley who was aging and getting slower. You got rid of Emmanuel Sanders, who, quite frankly, even though he had a stat line of like 600 yards, I thought was underwhelming. And then you add Gabriel Davis, who looks better. And mind you, I was at quite a few of the training camp practices, and man, was he impressive. I said it every single day, every single time I was there. It was just, you watch him and he's just unbelievable. So you add another probably 100 targets going to Gabe Davis. And then you add guys like Khalil Shakir. You give Isaiah McKenzie a full-time option or a full-time role. There's so much more that's going into it this year, and an offensive line, like I said, with Roger Saffold, Rick Bates being the full-time guard. There's so much there that I think truly this Bills team is you're not seeing a drop off. Like that's why when you looked at a lot of the beat reporters when they were in OTAs and they were going through the early parts of Bills camp, they were saying it literally looks like there was no gap from the end of last season into this year. Like they look exactly the same. And that's a testament to this Bills team. Really. They are that damn good that they literally they stepped off the bus from Kansas City right to Buffalo and continued on. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think the Rams are going to be in for a hell of a wake-up call. The banner might go up, but it's going to come back down and go to Buffalo. I think that they're going to win that game decisively. I think Josh is, like I said before, is a man on a mission. And I think that Bills team is ready to finally ascend to the top.
What's your record prediction for the Bills, do you think?
I keep teetering between 14-3 and 15-2.
Okay.
I think the losses are, I said Vikings and Browns. Vikings and Browns, they play back to back. I could see it a weird situation where they lose to the Vikings in a weird game, and then they play the Browns right after that. And I believe at that point, Deshaun Watson will be back, or maybe, I don't know if it's right around there. But even if he isn't, I think I could see them losing back-to-back games like that. I think it's right around there. I could see them being a 14-win team or a 15-win team. I don't want to say they're going to go undefeated, but if they get through that first 6 weeks unscathed and they come out 6-0, watch out, because the season gets real easy for them very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's exactly where my record prediction kind of lied. So I ended up rolling at, I think the last time I predicted it was 14-3. If I went back now, I probably would say 14-3, maybe 13-4. But out of all of the games on the schedule, I was having a hard time finding games where they lost. Like, I'm sure there will be a game where they just fall flat. I mean, we saw it a few times last year. It's just the nature of the sport. But, those are things that I just don't feel comfortable predicting. I'm going to assume that we at the least see the average version of the Buffalo Bills, and that is still one of the best teams in the NFL, and that's the worst performance I'm going to expect on a week-to-week basis. And like I said, I find a hard time figuring out where they could lose if that's the standard I'm setting them at. And with that in mind, I guess I almost had to come to a conclusion where the Rams had to be one of the teams on the schedule in which we lost to. So I did have us losing this game because I just couldn't figure out where else to plug a loss. I think the other two losses were, I honestly don't remember. Maybe the Colts at one point. I think the Colts I might have had us losing to if they're even on the schedule. I can't remember, honest to God. But long story short, I had us losing to the Rams. One of the reasons was because I just couldn't figure out where else to put a loss. And at the same time, there was some other statistic, some stupid stat that said, which could use some more context, but nevertheless, the Super Bowl winner the following season in week 1 since 2000 is like 19-2. I know stuff like that is kind of, it has no correlation. But at the end of the day, just little things like that were amounting to my conclusion that we will lose this week. But, I wouldn't be surprised if we came out and won anyway. It's just a matter of what other game do we lose,
If we do.
If we do, right. I mean, it's like, see, that's the other thing. I just can't bring myself.
We're conditioned as Bills fans to look for a loss. Why do you have to? If the team's that good, who knows? And obviously they could have a one-off game, but those one-off games like the Jags game last year was because the offensive line was deficient. Once you added Rick Bates into that equation, it stopped really being deficient and it became a strength. So I think what weaknesses does this Bills team have? It's going to be the corners, but who's to say if Kyer Elam or Christian Benford doesn't step up with Dane Jackson and solidify that till Trey comes back? We'll see.
And that's an interesting, the point that you make, because there was, I think it was just yesterday, the report came out that, McDermott doesn't really know who the starting or who the cornerback is going to be starting between Benford and Elam. Who do you think it's going to be? It's got to be Elam, right?
I think it's Elam, and I think he's just playing mind games. I think he's playing mind games the same way that they knew that Trey wasn't going to be ready for week 1, but they kept it going for as long as possible because it's part of the game. It's all gamesmanship. They want the other team to have to plan for a multitude of different scenarios, one of which being Tre'Davious White potentially being ready. He was never going to be ready for week 1. He just, it's not a logical or a smart decision to put your best corner out on the field when he's not 100%.
Totally. It's almost, it's almost odd because I felt like there was a point in time where people were kind of expecting him to be ready for week 1, or they thought, and like just without even really putting much thought to it in the first place, that Trey will be back. He's been out for almost a year now. But when, at the beginning of the offseason, I wasn't expecting the guy to be back until like early October, mid-October, like, and maybe even early November. I mean, these are things that all depend on the player and how they heal with the whole thing. So to expect, like you said, to expect him to have been ready for week 1 was just a complete stupid thing to think, I guess is the way to put it. Where do you think he comes back? Do you think it's a week 5 type of thing right after the pup ends? Or
I think it's after the bye week, if I had to guess. Just because generally speaking, so obviously it's 4 weeks for the pup, and then it's just getting back to practicing because you can't practice on the pup.
That's true.
So my guess would be, and I know nothing more than than anybody else knows, but based on so banged up Bills, Kyle Trimble, he's the guy that comes on my show. He's a physical therapist, and he said himself, based on how things are looking, it would make more sense for him to come back later than it would sooner. And the only reason is, in the grand scheme of things, you're playing the long game.
Yep.
You're playing the playoff, the Super Bowl game. So you want Trey to be ready and you want Trey to be healthy for that entire run. Bringing him back too quickly, you'd rather have him 100% than 70. So if that means after the bye, do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if, obviously we have enough depth at the cornerback position at this point, with Christian Benford obviously playing up to a level that we didn't expect, but are certainly satisfied with. There's literally no reason to bring Trey back at an accelerated rate. We saw what I thought the secondary played tremendously well in the divisional round game. I didn't think that game had anything to do with them. I thought they did their best for the position that they were put in. And throughout the year, as Trey White was out, they really didn't look like they missed a beat. And that's not really a testament to Trey White's impact. It's just a testament to how good our secondary is, how well coached they are, the system that they play in, and how well they come together. It just speaks to how great they play without Trey White. So like you said, there's no reason to bring him back so soon. And I think there's just all the more reason why the long game makes the most sense for Trey White in this situation.
Agreed.
All right. So the second question, actually, let me touch on the one question that I know. I think it was Brandon had earlier that I told I would get him back to. Brandon says, I know it's hard to admit, but Colts will be first seed in the AFC this year. What do you think about this? The Colts being the first seed of the AFC. Do you think this is in the realm of possibility?
Well, I'll say this. Jonathan Taylor was a man on a mission last year. It was unbelievable. The problem was his quarterback was Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz is hot dog water. Matty Ice, the problem with him is he's unbelievably talented. Probably would have been in the Hall of Fame if I had to guess. But the issue with him is that he's never been able to get any team over the hump, even the Falcons. He's a great quarterback and just always kind of fell short. I think it's entirely possible because that team is loaded. I think the issue is, one, I'm not super high on their wide receivers. I think Michael Pittman's nice. Alec Pierce is nice. Michael Pittman's not a number one. Alec Pierce is like a number three. So personally, I don't believe in their wide receiver core. And yeah, you could ride Jonathan Taylor into the ground. I guess it just comes down to what they're going to do, what their offense is going to be, because Matty Ice is like an air raid offense quarterback. Yep. And they're playing with Jonathan Taylor. Yep. So I just don't know what the expectation is. I don't know what Frank Reich is going to do or plan to do, but could it happen? I guess the reason I think it's possible is that division is brutal. But then again, at that same time, who knows? Because we don't know what the Jags are going to be without Urban Meyer. I think the Texans are going to surprise some people. I don't think Davis Mills is as bad as what people think. And we don't know what the Titans are. As much as we make jokes about Tannehill and Derrick Henry, you don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's possible. If there's any division outside of the AFC East and the Bills, I think that's the division, because the other two, the AFC North and the AFC West, are just going to kill each other. They're just going to beat each other up. So I guess my opinion is, probably if there was another team that could do it, that's probably the team, just purely based on they have the easiest pathway there, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree. I mean, the Colts have one of the easiest strength of schedules going into this year as of right now. And Matt Ryan, I'd like to think the transition from an air raid offense behind an offensive line that was pretty much a skeleton to probably what I would consider the easiest job in terms of quarterbacking in the entire NFL. You would think that would be a smooth transition, but that's what I thought about Carson Wentz going from a very toxic situation in Philadelphia. Didn't have much help. He was jerked back and forth from Doug Peterson with Jalen Hurts. And, he got to Indianapolis, and I thought he was going to be able to turn his career around, find himself in a relatively simple situation, but he couldn't make the reads when he had to. He had limited opportunities where he really had to make a play, and he fell short more than he came up big. Matt Ryan, I'd like to think, would be the opposite. I think he's more accurate. I think he's smarter. He's still a very fast processor when it comes to throwing the ball. I like Matt Ryan a lot more than I like Carson Wentz. And obviously, that's speaking in hindsight after what we saw from Wentz last year. But that transition, I guess is my point, is not as simple as I would have thought it to be. So I think that might be a little bit bold to say at the moment. But like you said, the easy strength of schedule, a division that's not too tough, a team that is built to be that type of level. We saw what they did to us, although kind of fluky. They still did it to the Buffalo Bills, week 13, 14, whatever it was. They demolished us. They're a team that certainly has what it takes to beat the best of the best. So I think it's definitely in the realm of possibility, but I would lean more toward third seed, I think, is probably their ceiling, in my opinion. All right. So let's touch on the second question that I had real quick, which is speaking of these difficult divisions, who do you think wins the AFC West?
Man, that's a doozy. So I don't know if I truly. I hate to go against Derek Carr, but I think I think the Raiders are probably. I'm going to leave them out of the equation because I don't know what they are right now.
Okay.
I think the Chiefs are going to see a bit of a step back, and the only reason why I think the value of what Tyreek Hill can't be, it can't be stated enough. I think what it's going to come down to is how good Russell Wilson is in the Broncos offense. And from what all accounts are saying, the reason he signed that extension was because of him and Nathaniel Hackett's relationship, and how Nathaniel Hackett's going to allow him to be an author of that offense, and how comfortable he feels in that offense with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Javonte Williams. I think there's a ton there that he could potentially run with, and that defense is good. I think that the Broncos, because I love the Chargers. I think they have a ton of talent, but they just can never seem to get over the hump. I think, quite frankly, I think the Broncos are the one team that I'm looking at and saying, I think they could make a run. I think you've got two very talented wide receivers there. And not to say that Russ didn't have them in Seattle, but they were running the ball like, what, 30, 40 times a game. It made no sense, even with a quarterback as prolific as Russell Wilson. I think you're going to see a very talented Broncos team come out swinging this year. And Javonte Williams is just going to be kind of that sweetener, that little, kind of what Devin Singletary is with the Bills. You might see him 12 to 15 carries a game at most, and he's just used to kind of take the pressure off of Russell Wilson and maybe for play action's sake.
Yeah, I hear you there. And a lot of people seem to share the same opinion when it comes to Denver. And I feel like it's almost, when you're talking about the Broncos, it's either you think they're going to be stinking shit at the bottom of the AFC West, or they're going to be the division winners. I feel like I really haven't heard a middle ground for them. And I guess I fall more toward the other end of the spectrum, simply because kind of going back on that transition thing, Russell Wilson going to a new area, a new team, change of scenery, an offense which he really won't have to hold as much responsibility on his own shoulders. He's got a run game that's going to be able to do a lot of heavy lifting, a wide receiving core, which isn't as talented as I would say DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett were, like you mentioned, but nevertheless, still very talented. In defense, it's a lot better. He doesn't have as much responsibility, and I just, for some reason, feel like there's going to be an acclimation period between Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos, and they're going to start off a little bit slow. And if you get behind the eight ball just a tiny bit in the AFC West, I think that's really going to it's going to kill them. And that's kind of why I feel like the Broncos could end up being fourth in the division. But in terms of the long term, I think that's where the Broncos win. I think all these other teams are going for the neck now. And they traded for Russell Wilson, 34 years old, keeps his body in very good health. They're going to be winning the long-term game. And I could see 3 to 4 years is where they'll really hit their peak and start to beat up on teams and be that true Super Bowl contender. I think this year it's just too many other teams in the way,
For sure.
All right. So let's move on to my final Q&A question real quick, which is going to be this. Who will be the number 1 seed in the NFC?
I think the easy answer would be the Green Bay Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers, being what he is, 2-time reigning, defending MVP of the entire league, I think it's tough without Davante Adams. We don't really know what they are right now. We will see. I think the other obvious answer is the Buccaneers. But like I said, there's a couple teams that are in there. We don't know how good Dallas can truly be. We don't know what Dak could truly be. I don't like Mike McCarthy. I think he's kind of just a pinhead coach.
Yeah.
But they've got a ton of talent. And then I said the same thing for the Saints. I mean, the Saints are an incredibly talented roster with a quarterback who's still trying to prove himself in the league. But if I had to guess based on who I personally think the Super Bowl this year, I know people keep saying the Rams and the Bills. I think it's going to be the Bills and the Packers. I think that's going to be the Super Bowl this year. So that would be my guess.
All right. Yeah, I think the Packers, I don't think they take a fall off. Aaron Rodgers has shown in the past that he can get it done with really whoever he needs to get it done with. And the other big point about the Packers that I think is going a little bit overlooked when it comes to a conversation like this is how good their defense is. Their defense, I expect to be top 5 in the NFL this year. They did, tremendously last year without Jair Alexander for a majority of the season. I believe it was Darius Smith that missed a lot of time. Granted, he's gone now, but nevertheless, they were still very, very, very good without some of their key players. And similar to the Bills defense, this Packers defense was stout, and they were able to get it done without some of their top guys. So I think that's a big part of the Aaron Rodgers narrative that's kind of getting lost. He might not have the help in Devontae Adams, but he's got the help on the defensive side of the ball. He's got the help with the offensive line. He's got the help with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. There's a lot of other pieces around him that are going to be able to pick up the dead weight that he has at the receiver position. So
sure.
I definitely can see that happening. I really don't. I mean, it's a no man's land thing right now for the NFC. It's really up for grabs in my mind. I know some people might come out of left field with the Vikings. I know some people might see the Saints as coming out of left field, but I think they have an opportunity. Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I think the Eagles have a chance, if Jalen Hurts takes, more than just one step in the developmental path of being a quarterback. I think they have the best on paper roster in the NFL, or the most well-rounded, if you will. When it comes to every single positional group, they seem to have one or two names at least, plus depth, in comparison to the rest of the NFL. So I really like the Eagles too. But, those top teams, they're just kind of hard to not predict there, like the Rams, the Packers, the Bucs. If you go off kilter, off path, then fine. But I think I'll probably take the Rams just because. I don't know. But, yeah, I think the Packers are a good choice here too. All right, so that will wrap up the Q&A section. And I have two more segments remaining. This last one, it's not really, the second to last one before we get to the quiz game. It's not really anything to talk about, but it was something I added. This is the flashback of the week. So as the season goes through, before each week, I'm going to look back on a prolific performance by an individual by week. So we're going into week one. This is going to be a prolific week one performance by an individual. Can you think of a week one performance that may be fitting this description that comes to mind?
It's tough as a Bills fan because
yeah,
there hasn't been
this isn't just Bills either. So it's just...
I would say the one that always I think rings true was when the Bills opened up against the Patriots. And we rolled them 31-0 at home. And you had Sam Adams intercept Brady. You saw Lawyer Malloy debut against the Patriots. I would say that's probably one of the biggest week one just stompings and one of the best flashbacks, I think, because it was a moment that Bills fans finally felt something besides just utter pain until the following week. But yeah, I would say that was the game, because man, that was unbelievable. That was when we had London Fletcher too. Yeah, that was honestly, I mean, that wasn't even something that came to mind. I was thinking of, I have this segment tailored more toward a player's like individual performance, but nevertheless, thinking back on the time period of the Bills over the last 13, 14, 18 years, honestly, I mean, what else? Nothing came to mind, right? So, but you bring up a very good, in terms of a game standpoint, especially, that would actually have fit this perfectly. Now that I think about it, I guess maybe I should do it based on team, but it's all a work in progress. Nevertheless, the performance that I picked individually, this took a little bit of research, but I went with the 2003 performance. This was Anquan Bolden's rookie season, his first week. He went for 10 receptions, 217 yards, and 2 touchdowns for the Arizona Cardinals against the Detroit Lions. And I have a little bit of a clip montage that I put I'm not going to say, I'm not taking credit for this because I did nothing other than upload the video, but I found that I wanted to play real quick.
Bolden, they look that way, complete it to him, and he leans over for the touchdown. Play clock down to 5. They get it off. Leading the 38, Anquan Bolden once again into the open field. Bolden is gone.
I don't know, Corey Harris might have him. Wow.
A couple of moves and a touchdown for the rookie. 71 yards, his second touchdown of the game.
Do anything different.
They need him to get to the 36, whoever makes it. They go to Bolden, he does it. Out to the 50-yard line.
The blitz by the Lions.
Here it comes. Emmitt Smith picks it up. Anquan Bolden once again.
Oh, man.
This time down to the 20-yard line. 39 yards on the pass reception. Here comes the blitz again. Bolden with the catch. He goes over the 200-yard receiving mark as he's finally dragged out of bounds.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even know that happened. And did you hear that name about who picked up the blitz, which I just honestly heard? The running back that picked up the blitz there. Did you hear that in that clip?
Was that Emmitt Smith?
Yeah, he said Emmitt Smith. Is that the Emmitt Smith? Did he play for Arizona?
Emmitt Smith played for, right after he left, he played for the Cardinals. Yeah,
oh, wow.
I remember that.
I didn't know that. I just learned something. Wow. Anquan Bolden, the former Bill, too. Remember that stretch of time? I didn't even put that together
were clean, by the way. I love those old jerseys for the Cardinals.
Oh yeah, they were sleek. I like the all black. I don't like the black that they just debuted. The all black helmets. I don't know if I'm a big fan of those. I like those white a lot more, to be honest. But yeah, that was my flashback of week 1. Another little segment that I was trying out. But we're gonna get into the most anticipated segment of the show. This is the Caveman's Quiz Game. This is my favorite one to do with every single one of my guests, and it's fun to see how they perform. So this is how the quiz game works. Not much has really changed, to be honest. I didn't feel like really much needed to be changed. Oh, that's the leaderboard. So the Caveman quiz game goes as follows. You're going to have 5 questions: an off-season events question, a stats question, history, draft, and awards question. You can choose between the easy, the medium, and the hard. Easy being 10 points, medium being 20, hard being 30. There's a true-false following question. If you get it correct, which is worth half the correct answer, you get 1 mulligan per game. But if you want to hold it till the end and use it on another category, I'll let you do that as well. A final wager question, which works like Final Jeopardy, and we'll get to that at the end of it. And then you get to fight to be etched on the leaderboards. And at the top, right now, I got my man DNR, Dan Bacon. He's a pretty big TikToker in the TikTok community right now, but he killed it. He went for all hards, and he knocked it out of the park. So he's the leader at 169 points right now. Dave at 150, Sterling at 105, Charlie 100, and Matt at 90. Okay. How you feeling going into it?
I love trivia. I'll say that. I used to do trivia all the time with my buddies. Now that I'm married, doesn't happen as much, but my wife tells me I'm a useless box of information. So I'm hoping it works out for me.
All right. We'll see how you do. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. All right. So let's kick it off. So for the first question, do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard? This is the off-season events question.
Let's go for it. Let's go hard right out of the gate.
All right. He's going hard right out of the gate. The first question is, which player received the biggest, most expensive, or most money contract in the 2022 NFL season?
Which player received the biggest, most expensive contract? I believe, if I remember correctly, it's the now wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Christian Kirk.
It was not Christian Kirk. It was Deshaun Watson. They gave him that big, massive chunk.
Yeah, I didn't even think about Watson's fully guaranteed contract.
Yeah, that's the trick about it. Nobody thinks about Deshaun Watson, because the way I do these quizzes is I'll send out like a form to a few of my friends to test how difficult it is. And that Deshaun Watson went overlooked pretty much every single time. But yeah, Deshaun Watson is the most guaranteed money there. But anyway, do you want to use the mulligan here? Do you want to hang on to it?
Let's hold on to it.
All right, he's going to hold on to it. So we'll move on to the next question. This is going to be the stats question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Let's go medium this time.
All right, he's going to take the medium. Who had the longest rush of last season?
Longest rush of last season. There's a couple guys in mind. I want to say it was Derrick Henry.
It was Jonathan Taylor. Derrick Henry was second. Jonathan Taylor had that big run against the Patriots. I think it was the game against the Patriots where he broke it for like...
That's exactly when I was thinking that was potentially it. I got Derrick Henry mixed up by 1 year. So
he was second. Derrick Henry's like right there, like behind Jonathan Taylor. I think Derrick Henry's run against us was 70-something yards. I can't remember off the top of my head, but Jonathan Taylor had the longest run. It was between those two. I mean, they were the only two guys that had any type of large runs last season.
Right.
But with that being said, do you want to use the mulligan here? Or do you want to hang on to it again? Up to you.
Let's use it.
All right. So I don't have another medium question. So do you want to do the easy or the hard, or you can hold on to it again? I'll give you that option.
Let's go hard.
All right. So he's going to take the hard again. Hard stats question is, which defense had the most pick sixes last season?
The Cowboys.
You are right. The Dallas Cowboys did have the most pick sixes. So that's 30 points on the board. Good answer. And the true false follow-up is going to be this. They also led the NFL in points last season.
False.
That is true. They did lead the NFL in points. They had they led the NFL with 530 points. The Bills were third with 483. The Bucs were second with 500. The Cowboys, their defense actually wasn't horrible, but they scored a shit ton of points last season, and they still fell out of the playoffs in detrimental fashion. Anyway, 30 points on the board. Not the worst start ever. Question number 3, the history question. Do you want to go easy, the medium, or the hard?
Let's go hard. I need to catch up.
All right, he's going hard. History hard. Out of the current 32 teams, who is the least amount of losses in NFL history?
Least amount of losses in NFL history. I got to go by divisions, right? You got to go by teams that have poor divisions for a long time or teams that have been successful the most. That alone, and just based on quarterback play, I'm going to go with the Packers.
It is not the Packers. The least amount of losses, the way to go about this question would have been the team that hasn't been in the NFL too long, and that would be the Houston Texans.
Trick question.
Yeah, the Houston Texans are the least amount of losses, and they've had their years where they've been solid, but obviously they've sucked. So that's the convoluting factor of the question. You don't think Texans come off of as the least amount of losses, but yes, they do. The Packers, they are second, and I think they will take the lead for the most wins in NFL history. I'm assuming they have a better record than the Bears. I think they're 1 win behind the Bears.
You say Packers were second in losses?
No, second in wins, most wins.
Wins, okay. My apologies.
Yeah. If they get like one more win than the Bears do on the season, they'll surpass Chicago for the most wins in NFL history. But yeah, so that is the answer to that. Question number 4. This is going to be the draft question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard draft question?
Let's go medium.
All right. The medium draft question is, who was the higher draft pick, Tony Romo or Troy Aikman?
Tony Romo was, I believe he was undrafted. So I think it was Troy Aikman.
You are correct. Troy Aikman was the higher draft pick. So you get the follow-up, true, false. They were both top 10 picks. What do you think?
No, false.
Yeah, you're right. You just said he was undrafted, so you already answered that one before I even asked it. But yes, you are correct. That brings you up to a total of 60 points. So you have one more question, and then you'll have your wager question. So you have an opportunity to, well, I guess depending on how the last question rolls out, we'll see what kind of opportunity you got. But 90 points is for 5th place, so put that out there. So the awards question is question number 5. So this is about any type of, offensive player of the year, MVP, etc. So do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Let's go hard. Let's try to see if I can win this whole damn thing.
All right, he's going hard. The hard question is, who has won the most consecutive NFL MVP awards?
The most consecutive NFL MVP awards. Well, we know Rodgers won back-to-back. Beyond that, I'm trying to think of Manning. I think Manning might have done it before. I don't think Brady's ever done it back-to-back, though. Montana, potentially, but I don't know how far back the actual MVP award goes. I don't know if they had the MVP back when the league started. That's a doozy. I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers.
You had the franchise right. It just wasn't the quarterback. It was Brett Favre. Brett Favre won NFL MVP from 95, 96 to 97, the only quarterback in NFL history to win it 3 consecutive seasons. Aaron Rodgers, if he does it again, obviously will tie that, but it is Brett Favre to win 3 straight, which before researching this, I didn't know he did that. That's pretty insane. to have one guy win it 3 straight years. I feel like that's not something they would let happen in this day and age. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So you do have 60 points still. You have the wager question. Do you want to wager it all? You could wager all 60 and potentially get up to 120, or do you want to play it a little safer and try to go for the 5th spot? How do you want to do this?
Where would it put me if I wagered it all?
So if you wagered it all, that would put you that would put you in 3rd place. If you got another 60 points, you put it all on the line.
Let's go for it.
All right, so he's going to go for it all. The wager question is going to be this. Oh, wait a minute. I have the wrong number in there for 60 points. Wager question for 60 points. Which wide receiver led Super Bowl 56, Los Angeles versus Cincinnati in receiving yards?
Cooper Kupp.
It was T. Higgins. T. Higgins led the Super Bowl in receiving yards. He had those 2 bombs over. Well, the one was over Jalen Ramsey where he face masked him. And then he did have another long reception. But Cooper Kupp was second. T. Higgins was, I think, I don't know if he was the only one over 100 receiving yards. But, yeah, it was T. Higgins. But nevertheless, I admire the willingness to put it all on the line. That's not something that everybody would do. But I do admire the determination. But nevertheless, it was a great show, Tom. I really appreciate you coming on, dude. Thank you. And with that being said, are there any final thoughts that you might want to touch on before we head out?
No, just excited. It's, we're just over a day away from the start of the NFL season, start of our Buffalo Bills potentially going for it all. And you know what? It's an exciting time of the year. It's an exciting time to be a Bills fan, to finally have a team that, everybody's looking at. All eyes are on the Buffalo Bills. So it should be a good year.
Totally. And I can't wait for it. And I think I speak for every single Bills fan. I mean, every NFL fan, now that football is back, this felt like one of the longest off seasons of all time. But anyway, thank you, Tom, again, for hopping on. Sorry to keep you too late, but I hope you had a good time. And thank you to anybody that stuck around in the comment section, that popped in at any point in time. Be sure you're checking out Tom. All of his links are in the description of the live stream. So be sure you're checking all of those out, his Twitter, his website, the YouTube channel for his Buffalo Night Sports Show. Anything that he has is going to be linked down below. And as always, if you guys enjoyed, be sure you're subscribing, checking out the live next week and any other videos I have releasing. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed it and see you in the next one. Go Bills.
Go Bills.